Okay, I think we're live. Now I'm looking at my YouTube page because I don't know if we're live. So if you can see me, let me know. What's up, everyone? This is my second live stream in modern history. And yeah, here we are. Hopefully I didn't screw this up because I scheduled it, but I'm not sure if I did that right. So we're going to see if it pops up. If anyone's in here, you can confirm that I did it right. Otherwise, we will just have to see. Let's see. It says still waiting. Well, we're here, so hopefully you can find me. I apologize because I'm still figuring out this whole live streaming stuff. Wait, looks like it's working. Okay. All right. So, welcome. Thank you for those of you who are here, which is not many of you, but I appreciate you no matter where or who you are. Thanks for joining me. So today, first, let me apologize again because this whole live streaming thing is like a new thing for me. It's a work in progress, so bear with me as I figure it out. But I did one last week, and it seemed to go pretty well. We had fun. People hopped in, asked me some questions, and so I wanted to do another one. And today we're just going to be talking about some news. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the world of Fuji cameras. And as soon as I get this figured out, let's see. Yeah. See, because I went live. Oh, I think I screwed it up. I definitely screwed it up. I'm going to put in the chat. I'm live in another vid. Sorry. There we go. Okay. All right, here we go. We already have people asking questions, so let's get right to it. Let me get rid of this first because it is not working. Hopefully I can get rid of it somehow. Edit. And I'm going to delete it because it's not there if I can. All right, so here we are. We're live. Cool. Hey, Sandy. All right, Sandy's already asking some questions. Which is the best portrait XH2S? Best for portraits or XH2 or 2S? Low light capability, please. Okay, that's a good question already. We got a good question. So, Sandy, how are you? Thanks for joining us. So, I mean, look, here's the thing. Here's how I look at this situation. Now, I've been using the XT5 for about a year, and I find that the whole thing about like which is best for low light is like, you know, over the higher megapixel sensor or the lower megapixel sensor. I feel like it's really overblown. So for me, I like having the extra resolution. Now, I think if you're considering between the XH2 and the XH2S, really, I would consider, I think low light is not going to be as much as of an important issue as what I would consider more importantly is autofocus speed and what you're going to be shooting. So for instance, I mean, the AF speed and accuracy is going to be better on the 2S. So if you're shooting sports or action or you just want the fastest speed, that's the one to go with. Is it going to be better in low light? I mean, you can find tons of YouTube videos, and some people have done really amazing things on like which is better in low light. Does the higher megapixel have more noise and higher ISOs? And it seems like the consensus sort of is, yeah, it does have more noise, but it's really not something that's like a deal breaker kind of amount of noise. So I like the XT5 for the higher resolution, but I do a lot of, controlled portraits in a studio. So But having said that, I still do a lot of dramatic things with the light, and so I want to have it so I can, edit it and have that dynamic range. And I think it works great. So that's how I would look at it. And also budget, because the XH2S is a lot more money, right? It's like $500 more. So remember, you can put that money somewhere else if you don't need that faster AF speed and all of that. Also depends if you're doing a lot of video and this kind of stuff. I had an XH2 on loan from my friends at B&H. They let me borrow it for quite a while. And so I did a number of shoots with it, and I absolutely loved it. And I felt like the autofocus was fast and accurate for location portraits, studio work. I even did some sports with it, and I found it to be pretty peppy. But again, you want to do you want to figure out what makes the most sense for you. I don't think the low light noise performance, I don't know, for me it wasn't that big a deal. And I also do a lot of like nighttime portraits out, street photography and concert photography in very low light. And I use the X-T5, which is the same sensor as the XH2. And I love it. It does a fabulous job. But that's a great question. Thank you for that. Thanks for joining us. All right. So if you guys pop questions in there, I will field them as we go, but I'm going to start talking about some news. So first, again, I apologize because I scheduled this live stream and then I think I screwed something up. So I had to, I turned the live stream on, but then it looked like it was in a new window because I was looking at it on my iPad here. So if I screwed that up, apologies. I am a total noob when it comes to live streaming, so I'm trying to learn. And, oh, Ross Nation's here. Oh, my God. Ross, what's up, buddy? Sadly, no, Ross. Ross is asking if I'm coming to WPPI. I would love to. And Ross lives right in Sin City, so it's not much of a commute for you at this point, I guess. But I can't make it, man. I'm just too busy. I'd love to. Whatever's happening next in New York, I'll be there. I'm kind of like right now just so busy in a good way that I can't get out of New York. But yeah, I will miss all my headshot crew peeps at WPPI. And if you are a portrait photographer or you want to be and you want to learn about headshots, join the headshot crew. And there's so many awesome people in there like Ross Nation. Give him a follow. And yeah, I'm gonna miss you guys too. I'm sure it's gonna be a wild time there. But definitely join if you want to learn portrait photography and you want to learn how to take headshots and how to make it an actual viable business. You definitely want to join the headshot crew. Peter Hurley's the man. Peter is the hang on, I'm screwing something up. Peter is the man. He's the guy who taught me everything I know about headshots. So get in there and do it. All right, let's talk the big news of the week for Fuji fans like you and I, us Fuji flakes. The X100VI. Wow. Okay, so this camera is already causing a ton of buzz. People are like super excited for it. People are pre-ordering it out the wazoo. And I guess Fuji, it seems like they anticipated it pretty well because they're able to get those pre-orders. We'll see, but that was the little bit of news that I heard. It seems like they already made a bunch of them because they anticipated it. I mean, everyone loves those little X100 cameras. They're kind of like the viral Fuji camera at this point. So here's some thoughts on it. First of all, it has that 6-stop IBIS. I think that's great, but for me personally, I'm more excited about the 40 megapixel sensor. I think that to me is even more important than IBIS. I don't know. This might be like a sin to say, but I feel like IBIS is a little bit overrated. Like, because you definitely want IBIS. It helps a lot. But like if you're taking pictures of people and they're moving and you're using a slow shutter speed, they're still going to be blurry. So for me as a portrait photographer, I feel like there's a lot of awesomeness to that. But I'm more excited about the the 40 megapixel sensor, I think it's going to be pretty awesome in that little camera. And yes, apparently the lens is optimized for it, which, you know, I know we're all going to freak out about if we don't have clarity on that. So it is optimized. And I feel like that 40 megapixels is going to allow you to do more with the camera. You can crop in more. There's a lot of, you know, like more latitude you could have with it. And I think 40 megapixels in that little tiny camera is pretty cool. Card speed, it's UHS-1. People have been kind of a little disappointed in that. And I get that. It's definitely, you know, you want the fastest write speed you can get, especially with a larger file size. But, you know, when I think about that camera, it's not something that I'm going to be blasting off one shot after another with. It's kind of the camera that you work slowly with. It's street photography. It's casual portraits or whatever. It's kind of the discrete camera you take with you. So I'm not sure that the general user of an X100VI is going to really miss that. I guess I haven't used it yet, so I have to see. We'll see what it is in real life. And I am on probably at the very bottom of the list to have one sent to me to try out. Like literally, if you have the list is here, and then my name is like on a shelf over here. They're like, oh yeah, that Picoco guy. Maybe we should send him one. So I have no idea when I'll get my hands on one, but when I do, I will definitely review. I'll give you my thoughts. But make sure Pal2Tech, my buddy Chris, is always going to have like the definitive review. And I know he's been working crazy hard on it. And he had really reshot a lot of it because of some of the updates at the Fuji X Summit. So the thing is, watch his review. I don't know if he released it yet. He's been delayed it a couple of days. So maybe it's going to pop up today. I didn't see it if it has yet, but follow Pal2Tech and watch his review. Okay. Video. I don't know, for me, like a little pocket camera like that, I will never shoot video on it. Maybe just a clip here and there on the X100. What do you think? Is video a big deal to you? To me, it's like, nah, not really. I don't see myself using it as a video camera. All right. So, wow, questions are popping in, people. Thank you. Okay, we got Peter Olmsted. Hello, fellow Peter. I love that. Love that. Good name. A good, strong name. Peter the Rock. Okay. Any tips for nighttime parade photography? I just returned from Carnival in the Caribbean. I found it quite a challenge to fight light versus motion with the X-T4. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of the toughest situations, like nighttime, no flash. I'm assuming you had no flash. So there's a number of things you can do. First, you want the fastest lens you can have. Like the fastest lens you can afford is going to do the best job in there. So like if I was doing that, nighttime parade, I'd be rocking this bad boy that I just picked up that I'm absolutely in love with, the 50mm f1, because you're gonna let in the bee's knees worth of light. So that's the first thing. You need a fast lens for that. Second, just freaking crank that ISO, man. Like you're going to have grainy images most likely, but I rather have grainy high ISO images that I can kind of play with in post over blurry images. So that would be my other tip, because you need a fast enough shutter speed, obviously, right, to freeze the action. So that's what I would do. I would just crank up that ISO, use a super fast lens. I definitely wouldn't use a zoom lens with like a variable aperture. Even if you have a 2.8 lens, probably you would find that challenging as well. Now, the other thing I'll say about that is if you're in that situation, like, embrace it. So you could probably create some amazing sort of blurred pictures with a little bit of motion if you're shooting a nighttime parade, especially at Carnival. I mean, that's oh, wait a second, from Carnival in the Caribbean. Yeah, I mean, from a carnival or from Carnival, I don't know. But anyway, if you're doing a nighttime parade, embrace a little bit of blurriness. Try and make some cool pictures with it. That would be the other thing that I would do. I would use that long shutter to my advantage. And there you go. There's a great reason why you want IBIS too. But definitely, Peter, you want to use a fast lens as fast as possible. And then don't worry too much about the ISO. I've shot on the X-T5. I've shot probably up to like, let's see, probably like 6400, and it's been reasonably okay. I've never really gone above that, but you know, if you have to, you have to. And then there's software. Everyone keeps telling me about Topaz AI. Is that what it's called? That people in the last stream told me about, and I know that apparently it really does an amazing job of getting rid of the noise. So that's another thing you could try. Ruggiero, how are you? Okay, what's the highest ISO you would recommend for portrait on XH2? Oh, cool. I just sort of answered that. There is no highest ISO I'd recommend outside of a particular situation. So here's what I personally do. If you're taking portraits, right, and you don't need a high ISO, I want to use the lowest possible. I use 125 or 160 is generally what I put it on in my studio. If I'm doing street portraits at night, which I like to do a lot, or concert photography, like I said, I'll go up to 6400. I don't like to go above that because then I feel like it really does get pretty noisy. But if you watch my last video, I talked about the 50 f1 lens. The cool thing that I was able to do with this lens in my last shoot, which so I'm a musician, I play bass, and so I take my camera with me to my gigs, and I play in a lot of like little bars around New York. And so I hang out in that, and it's a very cool scene. But these are like very poorly lit venues. They don't really have proper stage lighting. They'll have like a couple of like LEDs sometimes. So with the 50 f1, I shot some stuff as low as like ISO 200, and it was way underexposed, but then I brought it up in post and they look great. But I was averaging around 1600, 3200. But again, I'll go up to 6400. I think that's reasonable if you need to. But the trick is always to use the lowest ISO you can in that kind of a situation. Sandy, off-camera flash to avoid red eye. Yes, in low light. What ISO would you use, please? Your name should be higher on the list. Oh, Sandy, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. So that's a cool thing, right? First of all, if you're using an off-camera flash, that will all automatically kind of prevent the red eye, because part of the reason you get the red eye is because the flash is so close to the lens and it kind of reflects back. So just having a bigger flash, that's going to help. But if it's really dark and they're far away, you could still get weird, like scary demon eyes. So you gotta watch out for that. But again, Sandy, I would say in low light, I would easily go, if I needed to, say we're shooting in like a super dark room, easily I'd go up to ISO 800, even 1600 with the flash if you need to. For instance, now I'm not a wedding photographer, but I have shot a couple of weddings, and a couple of years back I did a friend's wedding, and it was in like, during the reception, I did a bunch of like flash photos on the dance floor, and I was shooting at like ISO 800, no problem, it looked great. And then that's kind of where you want to be. But again, it really depends on the situation. So what you got to be able to do as well is just don't be afraid to adjust on the fly, right? So if you say, okay, I'm in this dark room, I need to take these flash pictures, I don't want weird red eye, I want them to look good. I'm going to try ISO 800, and if you find it's not working, then you just bump it up incrementally. That's what I'll do. Here's the other thing. Even if you're using a flash like with a tilt head that's on top of your camera, it's still not, if the scene you're photographing is far away, it's still really not going to do it. So remember that even a big flash on top of your camera, it's really meant for like people close to you, like portraits, and it'll do a stellar job in that situation. But that all has its range. So like people will put a flash on their camera and then they'll like shoot like outside across like a field or something, or like architecture, and the flash isn't going to do anything in that situation. It's just not big enough. But that's how I would approach that situation. ISO, yeah, you're gonna have to raise it. Don't be afraid. I mean, these modern cameras, I grew up in the film days, right? So for those of you, you're welcome, Sandy. I hope that helped. But I grew up in the film days, and like back in the film days, if you shot ISO 800, like the Fuji Velvia 800, I think it was Velvia if I remember correctly, was like the best. Like, oh wow, it's awesome. So if you shot sports, oh, it's 800, it's the fastest you can go, and you still got really grainy images. So we're really spoiled nowadays. But that's what I would do. You're welcome, Rogerio. Hope I helped you a little bit there. Blake, what's up, Blake? Pete, any idea when all the XH2/S will likely get firmware updates with Reala Ace? Oh, that's a good question. You know what, Blake? They're putting the Reala Ace in. And I was going to talk about the firmware updates in the XT5. I had assumed. Am I wrong? I had assumed that it was going to the XT5 and the XH2 and 2S as well, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Someone let me know in the comments there if you know. But I know that Reala Ace is coming to the XT5. All right, so I'll talk, since Blake brought it up, let's just talk about the firmware update. So there is a major update coming, and according to what I've read on, of course, Fuji Rumors, XT5, XH2, and the XS20, I was under the impression they were all getting touch-to-track video AF, which is amazing, finally, because one of my gripes with Fuji is, like, if you use the autofocus in video mode, the AF options are very limited. You can't really do much. So touch-to-drag is going to be amazing to get in there. And then something else they put in there was video AF lag behind. So I guess they're going to kind of fix the AF lag, whatever that means. And Reala Ace, it said. Improved tracking ability as well. So that's, from my understanding, Blake, we're going to get all of that, but I could be wrong about that. We will know when it comes out, right? But it looks like Fuji is giving us a pretty good amount of, a pretty good amount of what we asked for. All right, so my buddy Jacob Strumillo is in here. Follow Jacob on his socials. Find him on Instagram. He's an amazing headshot photographer. Even old XH1 handles full usable 3200 ISO. You can easily shoot up to 1000 ISO with ease on APS-C, and dark, even 6000 is usable. Yeah, and grain is less than, so grain is better to have grain than motion blur. I agree, Jacob. I'm with you there. Unless you want the motion blur, you were trying to be artsy. Like at my last shoot, I was like, I'm going to be a little artsy. So I took some photos and I got a little bit of blur in there, and I thought I was so cool by doing that. But but you can't have every photo look like that. But yeah, I agree, dude. You definitely want whatchamacallit, higher ISO over the blurry image, because that ain't doing anybody any good. But yeah, and Jacob, 3200 easy I can do on the XT5 too. I don't find any problem with that. So, and I did one night out with the 5, and then the next night I brought the XT4, and shooting around the same ISOs. I didn't do any real testing, guys. Like, let's be honest. I'm not the person for that. I'm not go to Chris, Pal to Tech. He's like very technical minded. People think that I'm technical minded, but that's like another level of technical minded. So he's going to do a lot of like really official sort of testing on that. I think he might even have a video on that where he talked about the ISO, high ISO noise differences. But in my just real world kind of shooting, I didn't find it to be like a night and day difference there. All right, so let's see. What else do we have? Oh, okay. So I went into one of the Fuji Facebook pages. I think it was, I follow probably most of the big ones, but I follow like the XT5 one, XT4, and then there's like, I think it's the generic X series one. And I wrote, hey everyone, I'm gonna do the firmware update on the 16 to 55-28. Pray for me, with like a smiley, like a laughing face. So of course a bunch of people like, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? Should I not buy this lens? Is it this or that? Like people started getting a little like, so I was like, I'm kidding. It's just like, so if you didn't know, Fuji released the 16 to 55 firmware update a few weeks ago, and then they like pulled it the next day, and they were like, emergency re-release, and don't download it. So something was screwy with it. Thankfully, I didn't try it at that time, but this time they just re-released the update, and I'm like, let me just give it a try. And I'm happy to say that I used the 16 to 55-28 for 2 shoots, 2 portrait shoots, and every image looked beautiful. The focus worked great. I didn't have any weird stuff happening with the camera, and it seems like it's okay. And I got to tell you guys, like, I love that lens so much. And just because then I was purposely zooming in on them just to make sure, like, let me just double check. Because you know how sometimes if you shoot tethered, like I'll shoot tethered to my laptop, or I have a monitor on that cart behind me right there. And that's like a 20-something inch monitor. And so I'll shoot tethered to that. And even on that bigger screen, if you're slightly out of focus, it's hard to tell without zooming in. So I was zooming like crazy just to be sure, because I just updated the firmware in the lens. And man, the images are so good on that lens. They're so incredibly crisp and sharp. So I really love it. So I don't make any guarantees to you if you're going to upgrade yours, but I'm just telling you my experience. I did it. It was fine. Now there was another kind of cool thing that happened, and again, if you have a question, throw it in the live stream. I will happily answer your questions. Throw it in the chat, I should say, the chat. Now there was another article that Fuji Rumors had about like 10 perspective Fuji lenses. What do you want? And it was a cool list. It had some like telephoto, 27 millimeter pancake lens was on there, which obviously everybody's going to want that. Also, don't forget that many cameras got dual gain ISO. Okay, cool. Good point, Jacob. Thanks, buddy. See, even Jacob is more technically minded than me. And he's rocking an XH1, and he creates awesome images with that, because it doesn't matter what camera you have. It's the photographer. Anyway, but on that list, they had a bunch of cool stuff. But here's what I want out of any new Fuji lens. I have one request. I don't care the focal length. I don't care the size, the weight, the aperture. I don't care if you paint it, purple and green. I just want fast autofocus and linear motors in every single one that comes out from now on. That's my request when it comes to whatever lenses Fuji is going to release. One of the things that's been a frustration for a lot of us as Fuji users, right, is just, like having the autofocus being consistent from one lens to another. So I think AF speed, that's got to be what we want. That's what the people want. Fast autofocus. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so that's pretty much what I've had on my list, but I did want to give you a little preview about a video I'm working on. Speaking of flash, so do I have the flash here? Hang in there, I'll grab it. Okay, so let's see. As some of you know, I'm a portrait photographer. Probably most of you know that by now, but I'm sitting in my studio here, and in my studio, I use a lot of constant light, but I also use flash. And so I recently picked this flash up, which is a Godox V1, and it's a hot shoe flash, and you can just throw it right on there. It definitely makes the camera pretty heavy. It's a big flash, but it has like a rotating head, and it works. It's dedicated to Fujifilm. So if you're new to flash photography and you're going to buy a Godox flash or a Westcott or some other brand, it is very imperative. You got to make sure you get the one that's dedicated for Fuji. It's got to have the right contacts. So if you put the wrong one on there, you'll have problems. And it'll usually, like this one is called V1F for Fujifilm. So if you get the dedicated flash, obviously it's going to work with ETTL, full automatic, and then also all manually. So I'm working on a video where I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about using flash on your Fujifilm camera, because I think a lot of us Fujifilm users, or when you think about Fujifilm users, a lot of times we think of like street portraits, street photography, kind of run and gun, natural light. So But a lot of us Fuji peoples are using flash, and we're using constant light and this and that. So I did some shots. I invited a friend of mine, and she agreed to model for me. And me and my buddy John, JK Photo New York on Instagram, you should give him a follow, awesome photographer that I work with quite a bit. We did a bunch of different ways to use flash. So I'm going to show you, and then with some Fuji kind of specific tips in there for us Fujifilm shooters. But a lot of what I'm going to say, it doesn't matter what camera you're using, so you can actually do that with any camera. But there's some Fujifilm specific stuff. So I put some images here. Let me know if you can see this, because I have no idea what I'm doing with this live stream. But if that, let's see that, if you see that image, I'm going to see if I can, look at it on, can I see it on my own? I see myself, I'm watching myself, so I'm a few seconds behind. But anyway, so we did a bunch of different things when it comes to portrait photography. Yes, and it's there. There it is. Okay. So this image I created with just basically one light. Every image in here is basically with one light. And this, I'm going to show you what it looks like to have the flash on the camera as well as off the camera, and why we do that. And kind of the different sort of ways we use flash, like ETTL versus manual. This was shot manually with one flash, and then I had also a V-flat. Thanks, Kevin. I have a V-flat there on the opposite side, reflecting back some of the light. So that's one thing I did there. I'll show you another one. I'm just going to show you a couple of these. Now, this was cool because I used the same lighting, so I didn't change anything. This was the same light as the one I just showed you. But what I did on this one is I flipped around the V-flat so that I was using a black side instead of the white side. So it created negative fill. So on this one, there's a little bit more drama in there. As far as you can see, the shadows are a little deeper. And then here's a cool thing for us Fuji lovers. I shot this on Acros with the G filter, which is probably my favorite film sim to use. One of my top, probably 2 or 3. But check that out. It really, and this is right out of the camera. I did not do any editing. And you gotta love that we can just pull out those film sims and just throw them in there. They look awesome. And so that was done in the studio. I just threw the sim on as I shot, and I got some cool stuff. And then I'll show you one more. And then what we did, my buddy John and I, we did some like light painting-ish kind of stuff where we did like a slow shutter. And so I used something called second curtain sync to do this. And actually my buddy John took this photo, but I was holding the flash. So I just took the flash, I took this, and I'll talk about this in my video, but just to give you a little taste. And I just held it, a bare flash like this, just above and off to the side as the key light. And then using a slow shutter speed, this was probably at like 1/8 or 1/5 of a second. And what he did was he snapped the shutter and moved. And then I had this on rear curtain sync, which meant that the flash went off at the end of the frame instead of at the beginning. So there you go. That's kind of some of the stuff that we were doing. But it's definitely like, I find that people are terrified of shooting with flash at first, right? If you haven't tried it before, it can be a very, very kind of nerve-wracking thing. So I just wanted to make a video, and people have asked, a lot of you have asked me to do a video on flash, like using flash with your Fuji cameras. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. And it'll have a lot of like information just to get you started. Like I'll go through some of the menus. One of the things that's a little weird with Fuji is you have to go into the flash menu and set things a certain way. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I did a lot of footage also. I'm trying to become better about like the BTS footage around the studio so you could see what I was doing there. But that video, I will get it out there as soon as I can. I don't know when because things are crazy, but it'll be out soon, hopefully. And let's see, that's basically it. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. I'll continue rambling for a minute or two here. Let's see if I went through my list. Yeah, so the let's circle back to the X100VI for a minute. who's buying one. I have no idea if I'm going to buy one. I'm still on the fence about it. I definitely want one, but I don't know that it's going to be something that I need. Because here's how I look at it too. Like I'll show you one other thing. Be right back. Okay, so I also have in my bin of toys an X1 and X Pro 1. Let's see if I can get it to focus on that. See that? And like this has right now I have the Mica 35 f.095 lens on there, which is kind of a cool sort of lens. But like I can just throw my 35 millimeter on this and take it with me, and I'm very happy with the job it does, even for a over 10-year-old camera. The images are really stellar, and it has great low light performance, and I'm able to make some nice images with that. So I look at it that way, like, should I spend $1,500 or $1,600 on a camera when it's going to be, like, obviously there's a lot of upgrades, don't get me wrong, but like I take this with me a lot to my gigs and stuff like that, or if I'm just going out and doing some street portraits. It's awesome. I love it. So, and then I can change the lens if I want. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Plus, for me, I was really disappointed that there wasn't an X Pro 4 announcement, because I would definitely be more interested in that. So I don't know what's going on there. Like, is Fuji going to ever make an X Pro 4? Like, some people are saying that, like, oh, we don't think they're going to do it. I have no idea. I have no insider knowledge. I'm way on the outside of all of this stuff. But I know that I was totally kind of disappointed that there's no X Pro 4 announcement, at least that you know, it doesn't seem like there's going to be in the immediate future. Maybe that'll change. But I will tell you that when I do get an X100VI, I will put it through its paces. I'm looking forward to trying it out. And then after that, I'll decide if I feel like, okay, this is something that I want to own and keep. Like, sometimes that happens. If I get something for review, sometimes I will you know, like, keep it or purchase it from review, but often I'll send it back. Oh, my buddy Jesse is in. Thanks, Jesse. You rock too. So Jesse is one of my best friends, and we're in a band together. So you can follow Jesse Torres Music, I think is your Instagram handle, if I'm not mistaken. Follow our Instagram. We're in a trio. It's Cool Music, and that's when I go into the city with my camera, I bring my bass, and I do photos for all my musician friends, and we do portraits, and I do concert photography, and I love it. So much fun. Okay, so that's how I look at that. If I get it and I love it, I'll probably pick it up. I'm also more, for me personally, I'm more interested as a portrait photographer and a studio photographer. You know, I'm more interested in checking out the GFX 100 Mark II, and so that's really where you know, eventually, when I don't have the time right now to review it, but when I have a little bit more time and I get, I'm going to request one, I could probably get it. I'm pretty sure my friends at B&H will send me one to try out. They've been super supportive of my channel and what I do here. So if you are pre-ordering an X100 or buying any other kind of gear, definitely go to B&H, buy from B&H in New York. They're the best. I love them. They're an amazing store, and they will get it right out to you. And if you're like, I'm on Long Island, I get everything. If I buy it, I get it the next day, which is super cool. And definitely use one of my links. I got links in all my videos. This way they know that people are actually caring about what I say about the gear. But yeah, that's what I want to check out, the GFX 100 2 Mark II. Is that what they call it? Mark II. Because I tried a GFX 50S, and I tried it out with the intent on buying it as my entry into GFX, but it wasn't for me. I felt like the AF was still slower than what I really wanted for my portrait shooting. I mean, I'm not looking for it to be monumentally fast, but I know with the pace that I go with my portrait shooting, I definitely want something that's a little bit faster in the AF speed. and all of that. So it didn't fit the bill for me, which was fine. I got to try it. I sent it back. It created stellar images, but it wasn't exactly what I need for what I do personally. So that's where I'm at with that. So for now, I'm still using, like, my main studio rig is right here. This is what I use for the majority of my studio work, XT5. And then I've been using this 50 f1 lens quite a bit. And I also, as I mentioned before, I'm always using the 16 to 55. And then my other lens is a 35-1.4. Those are the three lenses. Any portraits that I take with any of my Fuji gear is with those. It's going to be with those three lenses. And I only got the 50 f1 recently. So before that, I was doing everything with the 16 to 55 and the 35. I'm still shooting with Canon sometimes, but not as much. I haven't used the Canon in probably a couple of weeks, but it is filming me right now. And the focus was jumping around a little bit, so there you go with that. But I'm using it. I use the Canon usually for B-roll and for filming videos and stuff like that. Jacob says the GFX 100S has better AF with phase detection. 50S still uses contrast-based. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Jacob. I mean, from everything that I've seen in the reviews I've watched, the AF on the GFX 100S2 is really good. It's really good. I still don't know if it's. I would doubt it's as fast, as snappy as a smaller camera like an XH2 or a 2S. It's probably, I could be wrong, but I feel like, medium format, everything's a lot bigger. It's bigger sensors, bigger lenses. I would imagine it's just gonna move a little bit slower. I could be wrong, but I'm not looking for it to be exactly as fast as like a Canon R5. I just want it to be a little bit peppier. So that might fit the bill for what I'm doing. But I think, that's always what we are looking for, right? With Fuji, we just want them to continue cranking out that AF speed. They definitely did a darn good job when they released the XT5 and the XH2 and the 2S of really stepping it up with the autofocus speed. Like, I was shooting with an XT4, and man, I love that camera. I still use it. I used it the other day in my studio. As I mentioned, I used it out for some concert photos last week. But I'm telling you, that AF speed, it could be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. So there's that. But the XT5, it's monumentally better. So that's when people ask me, should I get an XT4 and XT5? That's the main thing I usually tell them is, the 40 megapixels is great. You can do a lot of cropping. It really has a lot of resolution. But the AF speed for me is what really kind of separates it. And again, it depends on the lens you're using. All right. So listen, guys, this is cool. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to probably wrap it up unless someone throws a question in the chat. So if you have a question for me, I'll take a sip of my tea while we think. It's cold now. Gross. Okay. So, throw me some questions in there. As you know, I want to grow my channel like everybody, but if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do me the honor of subscribing to the channel, because the more subscribers that we have as YouTubers, obviously it gives us more time and resources to invest in our channels. So if you like what I'm doing on YouTube, I appreciate you all so much. I'm very thankful, just to have all these people showing up for a live stream, and this is awesome. I appreciate you guys so much. I really do. And I absolutely love doing this. So hit me up, give me a subscribe, follow me on all of my social stuff. And definitely let me know about some ideas, because if you give me an idea, if you throw me an idea in a comment or a chat or an Instagram, I can't guarantee I'll make a video on that, but I'm trying to do more on those videos. Kevin Gill, thank you for everything. Hello from Long Island. Hey, Kevin! Kevin on Strong Island. What's up, buddy? Oh, man, that's cool. So it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being in here. Andrew, Pete, no questions. Just thanks for another live stream this week. I learned a lot. Wow, Andrew, I appreciate that so much. I'm glad that you guys are learning and enjoying this. This is so cool. I really do love it. Yeah, very cool. So Kevin, we should come to Garden City and get a latte on 7th Street one day. And I appreciate that. That's cool. Long Island's a big island, so Kevin he might be 5 minutes from me, or he might be 2 hours from me, depending on where he is. And again, Andrew, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here again. Do shutter sound comparison between your cameras. I found that each Fuji to vary that part in each camera. Oh, that's funny, Jacob. Yeah, it's true. Like comparing the sound of the shutters. Listen, I did a silly video a while back about like the 5 reasons I miss my DSLR. Oh, Kevin, you're right in Garden City. Wow, that's crazy. Cool, man. My studio is it's right on Nassau Boulevard. I'm right here now on Nassau Boulevard. Wow, small world. But one of the things I miss about my DSLR is the kerplunk of the shutter, you know? Like you don't have that in the mirrorless camera. Some of them sound better than others, but you know, it's kind of a different thing, but that's funny. Yeah. Every Fuji camera, it sounds different too. Like the 4 and the 5 sound very different, for example. Yeah, that's cool. So Kevin, I did headshots for a lady named Kathy who she'll probably watch this at some point and comment on here, but she's an awesome photographer, a very cool lady, and she found me through my videos because she loves Fuji. She uses Fuji and Canon too, so she kind of connected with my videos, and then she needed headshots. She came to my studio, so it was pretty cool. It was like worlds colliding, but in a good way. Awesome. So, all right, here we go, guys. I'm going to sign off. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one. I'm going to try and be pretty steady about this if I can, but don't hold me to it because, you know, things are crazy by me. I don't have a schedule right now for YouTube, but hopefully I can get on some kind of schedule and maybe get these live streams on a schedule so you don't have to, like, look last minute to find it. Oh, yeah. Jacob misses his Pentax with the shutter sound. I had a Pentax I reviewed for F-Stoppers, the K3 Mark III monochrome, and that was an awesome camera. And it did kind of make me miss my DSLR a little bit because it's a very different shooting experience. Actually, that could be a cool video too, the difference in the shooting experience between a mirrorless and a DSLR, you know? But anyway, everyone, give me a little subscribe and a follow. Drop me a comment. I appreciate it very much. And if you want me to talk about something in the next live stream, hit me up. Let me know. I got some comments I got to respond to, and there was some interesting stuff in there too that might make it good. Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate you, buddy. I'll see you in the various places we hang out. And again, I'll wrap up. I'll circle back. Join the Headshot Crew. If you want to become an awesome portrait photographer, check out Peter Hurley's Headshot Crew. Oh, Kevin, just dropped a comment. What tracking sensitivity settings do you prefer for slow-moving portraits? That's a great question. All right. I'm going to answer that question before I hop out. Okay. All right. So I'm going into my camera as we speak. So I go back and forth because I do like to shoot in continuous for portraits. And then I have custom setting 6, which I use. And I have the tracking sensitivity all the way to the left at 0. So it's quick. And then I have the speed tracking sensitivity all the way to the right. So it's on accelerate, decelerate. And then I have zone area switching to auto. So this is kind of, I just sort of, I don't think you're going to be able to see it there. And this lens is so heavy, I don't want to drop this, but it's exactly what I just said. So that is where I shoot when I have it on AFC. And I like to track. I still feel like Fuji's tracking, it's a little quirky. So I will actually now, I used to have it on tracking, right? But now it's not going to let me do anything because there's no memory card in here. But sometimes now I'll put it on the wide zone and then have face tracking on, and it usually will grab the faces pretty well. So I would give that a try. See how that goes. That's worked well for me, and I use that when I do some sports photography. Or I'm shooting, sometimes I'm just shooting in single when I'm doing portraits if it's a slower paced shoot. But for kids and stuff like that, definitely give that a try. If you have subjects that are moving, you definitely want the AFC. You want the continuous. One thing also, remember, like if you have blurry portraits, before you blame the autofocus, make sure you're using a fast enough shutter speed. I know it sounds silly, but there's been times where I've even been like, let's see how I have my kid run towards me. My kids run at me, run at the camera now, and I'll be like, these images are all blurry. And then I'm like, oh, dummy, meaning me. I was using like 1/100th or 1/200th of a second shutter speed. Like that's not fast enough to freeze it. So you want to have like a higher ISO, higher shutter. I would say at least 1/500th of a second, right? If you're shooting even kids moving around, because those little buggers can be really fast, and then that might solve some of your blurry images issue, because sometimes it doesn't focus lock, but sometimes it's just our silly user error. I think a lot of times it's our silly user error where we're just not using a fast enough shutter speed. And remember that you want your shutter speed to be like double your focal length to just reduce motion blur. So I would say if you're shooting a 50 millimeter, that's like really a 75 millimeter with the full frame conversion factor, you want to use at least 1/200th of a second shutter speed for like a still subject. So just keep that in mind. Like even sometimes I'll notice I like to shoot at 1/60th of a second in my studio, but sometimes even that you can get some motion blur if it's a slow controlled environment. So you want to be careful about that. You want to be on top of that. Jacob, yeah, I think a video about DSLR would be great. Do you think people don't know what they are and how they work? I mean, that would be a funny video. I guess if you're a younger shooter, maybe you've never even, right? Because mirrorless have been rocking for like 10 years. You may never have even used a DSLR and understand like the differences. So that could be a fun video. I shoot even daylight with around 400 ISO just to make sure. Yeah. I agree with you, Jacob. Like if you're outside, even on a bright day, if you have moving subjects, like just shoot at 400, even what's the next? 640. Is that the next one? I should know that. Yes. 640. Because you want to freeze the action. You want to use a fast enough shutter speed. Or if you have this monstrosity of a lens and you can shoot it like f1, then obviously you can use a super fast shutter speed. So sometimes if I'm shooting wide open on like a 1.4 lens outside in the daytime, then you can use a slow shutter, a low ISO and still get a fast shutter speed. So everything remember, it's the exposure triangle, right? So we have our ISO, our shutter speed, and our aperture, and figure out the best combination of those three things for your particular situation. So a lot of this, guys, it's going to be just trial and error. You got to do a lot of this to really figure it out. So this is why I always encourage you all, go out and shoot and take pictures and have fun with it. I mean, photography, right? If it's not fun, why do it? Yeah, Kevin says, thanks, definitely quirky at times. Kevin, I feel that. But you know what? It's more for me, I think, okay, so if anyone from Fuji watches this video, which they probably won't, but let's pretend like they do. I think that Fuji can greatly enhance some of their autofocus by just changing around the interface a little bit. Like I find that the AF speed on the X-T5, I mean, for most things, it's great for me. I don't struggle with it like I did with the 4, which is a wonderful thing. But it's just the way the interface works and choosing options. I feel like they can kind of learn a lesson from Canon on that, because one thing Canon has is that the eye tracking focus It really works well, and it's much more intuitive. So that's something that I would say Fuji should continue to improve. And I guess that's something you can do with a firmware update, like improving the way the tracking modes work, having more modes that we can choose from to select the different autofocus and the way it tracks and the way it follows. And I think they are doing that, right? Because they're going to release that Touch AF, which is awesome. But that's where I find there's a little bit of quirkiness is sometimes in the interface. And remember that also, some people have trouble with the AF working right, and it's not necessarily the AF, it's choosing the wrong AF mode for what you need. So that's something else. You got to really play around with the different settings, play around with different modes, and figure out what works best for you. And this is on any camera. Like, for instance, I use my buddy's Sony AR5 Mark IV, AR4, Mark III. I don't know. It's like one of the newest ones. And like the focus was blazingly fast, which I knew it would be. It was an awesome camera. The menus were much better than I thought they would be. But my biggest problem with the AF is that I didn't really know the modes that much. So like I was shooting a wrestling match and the camera kept focusing, like it would grab the eye of someone in the audience behind the wrestlers and like lightning fast. But that was my not knowing the system as well as I should. So that's something we want to always remember. Whatever camera system you have to spend time playing around with things like the AF settings and the image quality settings to figure out what works best for you and the situation you're shooting in. Jacob says ISO doesn't bite. You get less noise with high ISO than after recovering the shadows. So better to get high ISO and proper exposure than low ISO and underexposed images. Right. That's another important thing that a lot of people don't realize. Like, if you shoot a lower ISO and then you pull the exposure, and it's underexposed, and you pull the exposure up in post, you're still going to get a ton of artifacts and noise, and a lot of times it'll be worse than just shooting the higher ISO. So I'm with you there, Jacob. But this is why, you want to make sure you have that proper tool for the job. Like the fastest lens you can afford is obviously going to be the best for any low light performance. And again, everyone, this is why we love Fuji, right? Because you can get super fast lenses, super high quality lenses, and they're not going to cost you $3,000 like if you use a full frame system. So that's something else there. All right, everyone, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for being here. This was awesome. I absolutely love doing this. Next time, continue to throw your questions in there, and I will happily answer them for you. Apologies because I did set up the live stream to go live, and then I screwed something up. It didn't go live, so people, I hope you're not mad at me. I tried to get rid of that one. And as I go, I'm going to try and become better at doing this the right way. So I will see you all next